Gopijana Vallabha Girivanodari. Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivanodari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivanodari. Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari Tira Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Gopijana Vallabha Girivanodari. Sodanandana Pratijana Ranjana. Jasodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari Tira. Jamuna Tira Vanachari Tira. Jamuna Tira Vanachari Tira. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jai Mr. Paramahansa Prabhupada Asatara to the Shishi Mother's Divine Grace. Srila A.C. Bhakti Swami, Srila Prabhupada ki, Anand Gaudavaisamani ki jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai, ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Prem Zigaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Samakam Radhakund Giri Govardhan ki jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Shri Maya Panari Dham ki jai. Ganga Maya ki jai. Jamuna Maya ki jai. Tulsideva ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Samveda Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Transcendental Book Distribution ki jai. Srila Prabhupada Book Distribution Marathon ki jai. All glory some devotees, all glory some devotees, all glory some devotees, all glory, Shishi Guru and Shri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 28, text number 53. Api Smarasi Chatmanam Avigyata Sakhang Sakhe Hidva Mang Param Anvichan Bhauma Bhoga Rato Gatahe Gataha Api Smarasi Chatmanam Avigyata Sakham Sakhe Hidva Mang Param Anvichan Bhauma Bhoga Rato Gataha Api Smarasi Chatmanam Avigyata Sakham Sakhe Hidva Mang Param Anvichan Bhauma Bhoga Rato Gataha Api Smarasi Chatmanam Avigyata Sakham Sakhe Hidva Mang Param Anvichan Bhauma Bhoga Rato Gataha Api Smarasi Chatmanam Avigyata Sakham Sakhe Hidva Mang Param Anvichan Bhauma Bhoga Gataha Api Smarasi Chatmanam Avigyata Sakham Sakhe Hidva Mang Param Anvichan Bhauma Bhoga Gataha Api Smarasi Chatmanam Avigyata Sakham Sakhe Hidva Mang Param Anvichan Bhauma Bhoga Gataha Avigyata Sakham Sakhe Hidva Mang Param Anvichan Bhauma Bhoga Gataha Api Smarasi. Do you remember? Cha, also. Atmanam, the super soul. Avigyata, unknown. Sakham, friend. Sakhe, O friend. Hidva, giving up. Mam, me. Padam, position. Anvichan, desiring. Bhauma, material. Bhoga, enjoyment. Rata, attached to. Gataha, you become. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The Brahmana continued, my dear friend, even though you cannot immediately recognize me, can't you remember that in the past you had a very intimate friend? Unfortunately, you gave up my company and accepted a position as enjoyer of this material world. Purport. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita 7.27, Icha Dvaisa Samudvaina Dvanda Mohina Bharata Sarvutani Samoham Sargi Yanti Parandapa. O saying of Bharata, Arjuna, O conqueror of the foe, all living entities are born into delusion, overcome by the dualities of desire and hate. This is an explanation of how the living entity falls down into the material world. In the spiritual world there is no duality, nor is there hate. The Supreme Personality of God expands Himself into many. In order to enjoy bliss more and more, the Supreme Lord expands Himself in different categories. As mentioned in the Varaha Purana, He expands Himself in Vishnu Tattva, the Svangsa expansion, and in His marginal potency, the Vibhinamsa, or the living entity, These expanded living entities are innumerable, just as the minute molecules of sunshine are innumerable expansions of the sun. The vibhinangsa expansions, the marginal potencies of the Lord, are the living entities. When the living entities desire to enjoy themselves, they develop a consciousness of duality and come to hate the service of the Lord. In this way, the living entities fall into the material world. In the Prema Vrvarta it is said, Krishna Bahirmukha Hona Bhoga Vanchakari Nikhata Samaya Tari Japatiya Dhare. The natural position of the living entity is to serve the Lord in a transcendental loving attitude. When the living entity wants to become Krishna himself or imitate Krishna, he falls down into the material world. Like there's some people who think that we were never in the spiritual world. Well, this pretty much clears it up here. Prabhupada says, when the living entity wants to become Krishna himself or imitate Krishna, how could you imitate someone that you never with? So it's pretty fallacious. Since Krishna is the Supreme Father, his affection for the living entity is eternal. When the living entity falls down into the material world, the Supreme Lord, through his Svangsa expansion, Paramatma, keeps company with the living entity. In this way, the living entity may someday return home back to Godhead. By misusing his independence, the living entity falls down from the service of the Lord and takes a position in this material world as an enjoyer. That is to say, the living entity takes his position within a material body. Wanting to take a very exalted position, the living entity instead becomes entangled in a repetition of birth and death. He selects his position as a human being, a demigod, a cat, a dog, a tree, etc. In this way, the living entity selects a body out of the 8,400,000 forms and tries to satisfy himself by a variety of material enjoyment. The Super Soul, however, does not like him to do this. Consequently, the Super Soul instructs him to surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord then takes charge of the living entity, but unless the living entity is uncontaminated by material desires, he cannot surrender to the Supreme Lord. In Bhagavad Gita 5.29, the Lord says, Bhaktiram yogi tapasam, sarvalokam maheswaram, surang sarvabhutanam gyatvam shantim rishyati. The sages, knowing me as the ultimate purpose of all sacrifices and austerities, the Supreme Lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attain peace from the pangs of material miseries. The Supreme Lord is the supreme friend of everyone. However, no one can take advantage of the Supreme Friend's instructions while making his own plans to become happy and entangle himself in the modes of material nature. When there is creation, the living entities take on different forms according to past desires. This means that all these species or forms of life are simultaneously created. Darwin's theory, stating that no human being existed from the beginning, but that humans evolved after many, many years, is simply a nonsensical theory. From Vedic literature we find that the first creature within the universe is Lord Brahma. Being the most intelligent personality, Lord Brahma could take charge of creating all the variety found within this material world. Om Jnanatamarandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshur Militam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Mukham Grotabachalang Pangunlang Hayate Garim Yat Kripa Taraham Bande Sikaram Dinataranam Vanchikapatibhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. In the purport here, Prabhupada mentions that Krishna, he has a plan. And we also have a plan. But if we don't take Krishna's plan, but we have our own plan, then how can a good result come out? So better that we accept Krishna's plan. And Krishna's plan is teachings in the Bhagavad Gita, is that we surrender to Him. This is the best thing for us, and is very pleasing to Krishna if we surrender to Him. It's not that Krishna, he is some egomaniac and he just wants everybody to surrender to Him and fall down at His feet and glorify Him. No, Krishna, he's Atmaram. Krishna is self-satisfied. He doesn't need anyone actually. He's completely self-satisfied. But for our own sake, it's better that we surrender to Him. This is the pleasure of the soul, is to serve Krishna. We have to serve someone. So better serve Krishna. And Krishna, he's so wonderful that if we serve Krishna, then we'll be satisfied. We'll be completely satisfied. We'll also be Atmaram. But this surrender is necessary. And that's explained in the Vedas, Anukoyasya Sankalpa. Accept everything favorable, just like now we're having this Prabhupada book distribution marathon. So this is very favorable for ourselves, and so many people that are getting Prabhupada's books. It's like this is the beginning of the new year. So we should want to do something for the people. How can we make a difference in people's lives? By this book distribution, this could be a very big year for people. They can get a book and it could change their life. So many lives are being changed by this book distribution. Of course, now people are very materialistic. It's difficult. As Krishna says, out of many thousands of men, one may endeavor for perfection. And of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me. And Prabhupada was speaking about this, and he said, actually, out of many millions, one may endeavor for perfection. So it's become very, very materialistic. But when Prabhupada came, Prabhupada came at such a perfect time. It's a whole change in consciousness. One devotee in Vancouver, he told me that they distributed 12 Bhagavad Gitas in Vancouver. 8 of the people that received those became devotees. Now we distribute, 80,000. You'd be surprised if one becomes a devotee. So it's just a particular time, But still, people are benefiting. People, they take a book, they just And Prabhupada said they just touch a book, they benefit. Just like when Krishna was here 5,000 years ago, so many of the ladies in Vrindavan, they would hold Krishna in their hands. Imagine holding Krishna in their hands, because all the ladies are all so very close, and Krishna is very attractive, so everybody wants to hold Krishna. Even myself, I grew up with 6 siblings, and so we had a lot of children, so I would hold the children, I'd take care of the kids and stuff, so it was nice. I still have that attraction to holding little children. So imagine holding Krishna in your hands, looking at the face of Krishna. So they were doing that. So when we give people Prabhupada's books, they're holding Krishna in their hand, because the book is not different than Krishna. So even if they don't take the book, if they just hold it, that's why I always hand the book to them. Even if they don't take it, I always hand the book to them. Just touch it. And sometimes they back away. They're like too impious. They can't even touch the book. No. So, some people, they're taking the book and giving donations, and sometimes reading the book. Sometimes even, actually it's happened quite often, people that I distribute books to, they quote some passage from Prabhupada's books that they really like. I really like that passage. So people are reading the books. Not so much becoming devotees now, but you never know what's going to happen in the future. You never know what's going to happen. But in any case, we have to follow the order of the spiritual master and the order of Krishna. Prana artha dhyavacha. He said that we have to give our life to spreading this this message, this great message of Krishna. And people's lives will be changed. We may not see it, but it's happening. Nayad vichistitam parangraya so jagat pavitam proginitikar chadbhayasam tirtam visantivar nayantrahansa niyamat yusiksayaha. That literature which is not decorated with the glories of Krishna, paramchitam means decorated, are said by sages to be places of pilgrimage for crows. And the saints, they do not derive any pleasure there. On the other hand, that literature which does give descriptions, which decorates that book with the glories of Krishna, are of another creation, directed towards bringing about a revolution in the impious lives of this world's misdirected civilization. So this is the idea, that it creates a revolution in people's homes, in people's hearts, in people's lives. Like there's one instance, I remember there's a reading of one man in India. He was a very degraded man, debauchee, number one, womanizer, drunkard, owned his own bar. So he was just big guy and just really foul language, low class guy. But to everyone's astonishment in this town, his father was a very gentle, saintly person. And nobody could figure out how that happened. And he was always trying to encourage his son to read Bhagavad Gita. I don't read. But somehow, a Bhagavad Gita ended up in his bar. And he would, in mock, he would read it. Him and his friends, in mock, they would just, in India. Like Kali Yuga. So he read one passage that, if one offers to me with love and devotion a leaf of flower, fruit, I'll accept it. And then they would laugh, like, ha ha, God's accepting it. But when he got home, somehow he was inspired to offer. Because I don't think he offered meat, hopefully, because it says leaf of flower, fruit of water. He offered it, and there was a little change in him. And then shortly after that, his father passed away, and it was actually devastating, because although his father was always trying to get him to engage in devotional activities, he had a lot of affection for him. So that really hit him hard. So he decided to read Bhagavad Gita all the way. Prabhupada, somebody had Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. So he had a revolution in his heart. He became a devotee, became an initiated devotee in ISKCON. So this is the power of the words of Krishna and the words of Srila Prabhupada. That so many, practically all of us here in the West at least, engage in so many sinful activities, and somehow, because of coming in contact with Prabhupada's books, coming in contact with the Hare Krishna mantra, the revolution in the heart, changed the heart. So this is what we want. We want to just get the knowledge out there. Just like sometimes people are concerned, well, so many books have been distributed, so few devotees, so it's something of the past. Book distribution is something of the past. But we don't know what's going to happen in the future by all these books being distributed. Over 500 million. About 540 million books have been distributed. They're in people's homes. So just like now we're having this pandemic, and people are losing their jobs. And many of these people, they have Prabhupada's books in their homes. So maybe they're thinking, well, maybe this is a good time to, gather some wisdom, some knowledge. Maybe this will help me through this difficult period. I'm sure. That's happening. Because a lot of times people aren't reading the books, no time, right? No time. Now they don't have a job and they have some time. So I'm sure people are reading Prabhupada's books more now than in the past. So, we don't know what's going to happen by this book distribution. But we know it's very auspicious. We know it's very auspicious. Because Prabhupada wants it, Krishna wants it. There's no loss, certainly. There's only gain by this book distribution. And there will be a change. Just like if you put a pot of water on a stove, and you put the heat under the water, for some time, it doesn't look like anything's happening. First couple minutes, it's practically the same. But as the water stays over the heat, then gradually bubbles grow up on the bottom of the pot, and gradually the water gets warmer and warmer. Eventually, there's a boil. But in the beginning, it looks like nothing's happening. It's still cool. So this is the beginning of this Krishna consciousness movement. 50 years is nothing. I mean, how long was it before Christianity actually took hold? After Christ did his preaching? 200 years. 200 years. They were being thrown to the lions, and they were living very secretly, because they were being prosecuted. Until, Constantine, he became a Christian in Italy, and then gradually it grew and grew and grew. But in the beginning, small time. So we've had this movement now for a little over 50 years, and we've got some pretty good success. Probably millions of people that accept Prabhupada as their mentor, their guide. They may not be initiated, but accepting Krishna as God, and they're servants of Krishna. So, we may not see this movement grow in a big way. We may. Let's see. Let's see what happens. But Prabhupada, by his purity, this movement has grown. But one time a devotee asked Prabhupada, what is the secret to all the success that you've had in spreading Krishna consciousness in such a short time? He said, the secret is, I gave Krishna as he is. I gave Krishna as he is. I didn't give my interpretation. And therefore Prabhupada called Bhagavad Gita as it is. And all these other Bhagavad Gitas, they can be called Bhagavad Gita as it isn't. Because people give their own interpretation. But Prabhupada, because he had love for Krishna, he gave the real message. And therefore, so many people became devotees of Krishna from reading Bhagavad Gita as it is. So many other Bhagavad Gitas came. Nobody became a devotee of Krishna. How many translations are there? I was reading or listening to it recently. Prabhupada said there's about 540 or more translations. Nobody became a devotee. Now Prabhupada comes and so many people become devotees because the love. Just like if you have a friend, a good friend, and you relay a message to him to give to another person, because there's love, he's not going to change it. But if there's no love, then he might change it to suit himself, or for someone, for whatever reason. If there's love, then one will give the message that's been asked to give. So Prabhupada had this love for Krishna. And if we take this seriously, we can also develop this love for Krishna. It's there, in the heart. And people to whom we distribute these books to, they can also develop their love for Krishna. I was distributing books a few days ago over at La Jolla, and one young man came to the table, and I showed the Bhagavad Gita to him. And then he looked at the Krishna book, and he said, "What's that about?" I said, "Oh, this is the activities of Krishna. These are the pastimes of Krishna. The Bhagavad Gita is by Krishna. And this Krishna book, this is the activities of Krishna." And he said, "Oh, I think I should get that also, because my girlfriend, she loves Krishna." So there's people out there that have great affection for Krishna that we don't know about. Yeah. And that's the result of this preaching, of this book distribution. People become attracted to Krishna. Krishna is very attractive. So we have to get this message out. This is the best thing for the people. And now we've just gone through this last year, this chaos, and now who knows what this year is going to be like? We don't know. Krishna knows. Only Krishna knows. But we have to get this knowledge out. And Krishna and Srila Prabhupada are very pleased. But there's one pastime where Prabhupada was in Mayapur, and some devotees were there speaking to Prabhupada, and they were showing different pictures of temples that had been opened recently. And Prabhupada wasn't showing that much interest. There was a devotee that had just entered the room, Bir Krishna, brahmachari at the time, with another devotee, book distributor. So Bir Krishna Prabhu at the time, he could see that Prabhupada wasn't showing that much interest in the temples being open. So he said to Prabhupada, Prabhupada, this devotee here, he's distributed 10,000 of your Bhagavad Gitas. And Prabhupada's eyes became very wide, and he said, oh, he has the mercy of Krishna. And he pointed at him. Imagine the devotee must have felt pretty ecstatic. But then the other devotees in front of Prabhupada that were showing the pictures of the different temples, they were a little forlorn. They were, we couldn't please Prabhupada like that. And Prabhupada saw that. He said, no. You're also pleasing Krishna. By opening these temples, you're also pleasing Krishna. But the book distributors, they're especially pleasing to Krishna. He said, just like in Vrindavan there's the cowherd boys that are engaged in pastimes with Krishna, and Madhya Yasoda, and Nanda Maharaj, and there's so many devotees in Vrindavan. But the gopis, they're the special devotees of Krishna. So many devotees, there's so many devotees in ISKCON. But he said the book distributors are the special devotees. Of course, book distributors shouldn't become proud. We're better. Pride cometh before the fall. So, actually, humility is a big part of book distribution. As Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, when will I, with a humble heart, go out to spread the message of Krishna? So a humble heart is necessary. Yeah. Because when we go out there, we're going out there as instruments. Nimitta matram of a Savyasachin. We're going out there as instruments in the hands of Krishna. So to be an instrument in the hands of Krishna, of God, you've got to be pretty humble. Because Krishna doesn't appreciate pride. Yeah. So humility is so important. We have to go out there with a desire to please Krishna. To please Krishna. And we know from hearing this book distribution is extremely auspicious. And there's one devotee, Pragosh Prabhu, Prabhupada disciple. There's two Pragoshas, famous Pragoshas in our movement now. GBC Pragosh, Satsrup Maharaj's disciple. And the book distributor, he's actually one of the best book distributors ever in ISKCON. He's famous. So, he was such a good book distributor. Still distributes books, actually. He's in New York. Very good book distributor. So he tells a nice example of an elderly man on the beach. And on this beach there's a lot of starfish. The waves have washed up all these starfish on the beach. And for starfish to survive, they had to be in the ocean. So this elderly man saw this scene here, so he thought he would help out the starfish. So he would go down and he would reach down and get a starfish, and he would go out and he'd throw it into the ocean. So this young boy, maybe 10 years old, he saw this elderly man throwing these starfish in the ocean. Yeah, there's like thousands. Yeah. So he was a little puzzled. He went over to the man. Excuse me, sir, but what are you doing? And the elderly man looked at the boy and said, "What's it look like I'm doing?" "I'm saving these starfish." And the young boy looked down the beach and saw all the thousands of starfish, and he said to the old man, "Do you really think you're going to make a difference? One at a time, you got all these starfish?" So the elderly man bent down and picked up a starfish and threw it into the ocean. He said, "Well, I did there, didn't I?" And the boy said, "Well, actually you did." And then the boy started helping out too. So, one at a time. So he explained that we were also that, starfish, just washed up, ready to die spiritually. But Prabhupada very patiently, preached and preached and preached, and so many souls were brought back to the lotus feet of Krishna by his sincerity. So we should feel gratitude that Srila Prabhupada has gone out of his way to help us and to show thanks to Srila Prabhupada. We should also do this wonderful activity of book distribution. So, is there any question or comment? Tapas, any questions or comments?
So I don't see any questions or comments on the YouTube, but we have 18 people, I think 19 people watching right now.
Okay.
Oh, Tapas, isn't there some devotees who could ask questions like you just made your comment?
Yes, I posted the link, but we have only 10 people so far joined to the Zoom Google group. We need more. We need more people to join in the Google group. I think we need to get the message out, maybe in temple newsletter somewhere, to encourage people to join there.
Okay, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki